Brent is going to give us a talk on Untangling the Mesh, and I just lost my reference there. Anyway, how to choose between Bluetooth, BLE, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, LoRa, DigiMesh, Z-Wave, and possibly more.
Possibly more.
Possibly.
I will mention the things I don't know about.
Okay.
Okay, so about 5 years ago when I was in college, I had just a very simple problem of how to just communicate anything with like an Arduino like over any distance. And I asked my professor, what's the best solution for this? And like most people with a PhD, he didn't know what he was talking about or how to do anything. He just knew a lot about one very, very tiny area and had no idea like how to do anything as a hobbyist. So I'm just gonna mostly go over my journey of like what I tried to use for communication protocols and what I've done with them. Okay, so the first thing like that you really want to know, and it's going to affect most of your design decisions, is how far and how much data you need to send. So just based on this chart alone, I'm going to kind of spoil my presentation up front and say I would recommend Bluetooth Low Energy, LoRa, and Zigbee, and those are if you're a hobbyist, I would focus on those because all the others are either very esoteric or just don't have that much of a use anymore. So as you can see, if you're very interested in power consumption, you're going to be very interested in the 802.15.4 standards. There's several that are based on that and essentially the same. And then as you go up to Wi-Fi, if LoRa was on here, it would be somewhere around here as well, because it's a very low power, low throughput option.
So is that standard for all of these Bluetooth and Wi-Fi?
This is just like an approximation. There are several different manufacturers of every sort of type of module, and this is just like a big picture chart.
The IEEE isn't a manufacturer though, it's a standard though, correct?
Yeah. IEEE is the standard for most of these. Bluetooth was at one point an IEEE standard, but now there's the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, which makes all the decisions about what's Bluetooth and what's not.
So what's the common name for the 802.15 series? Is there one?
Well, XBee is XBee.
No, Zigbee is the most popular variant of that complies with it, but there are a lot of other ones.
Okay.
Where was LoRa fitting?
So LoRa would be on this lower end because it's low power, very low throughput. I go back to the previous page. Like you cannot transfer very much data over that. But for most applications, unless you're like streaming audio, like I haven't encountered anything in my professional work that requires anywhere even near the top of this data rate.
Go ahead. So could you give just a little context? So you mentioned the impetus from your professor, but then you do some of this by day. So what's the how did
So in the context of what I do by day, I work for a very small company that the main reason we exist is my boss used to be in the Air Force and he was on their bomb defusal squads. So he has a very specific set of knowledge that he uses to train a lot of various groups in the US military and police departments. So we make a lot of kits to show them what's out there and practice on. And then because we make a lot of stuff in the US, because of our military contracts, we can't like outsource it to China. We have to essentially build it here in the US, so we figured we might as well do it ourselves. So we have a lot of like prototyping facilities that we use for a lot of other small projects. Like we have a lot of weird like horse training devices that we do. Since like Argyle has some of the wealthiest like horse ranches in the country, apparently, they pay absurd amounts for some of the custom devices we make.
So am I hearing, so somewhere between IED bomb manufacturer prototypes.
Yeah.
And horse training.
Yeah, that's cool. That's where most of our money makers
All right.
are.
Okay.
It's a very small business.
IEDs and horse training, I love it.
They're service horses.
And specifically, much of my focus is on making our products very unique. Because if you're trying to sell something for the government and their contractors, if your product is if your product is not unique, you have to be set up to their committees with like 3 other competitors, and they have to pick the best one. But if, for example, you have a Bluetooth Low Energy mobile app, and no one else has an app that communicates with your device, so the instructor can like show people, like monitor their progress and do stuff like that, then you can just go past that committee.
Are these in the, I think it's called the ISM bands? It's like there's.
Bluetooth Low Energy. So Bluetooth Low Energy and Bluetooth are 2.4 gigahertz, and what is it? Let's go back to this chart. So I believe Wi-Fi, Zigbee, and Bluetooth are all in it. LoRa depends on the country because and that's whatever band's available. And I watched most of what I know is about LoRa is from a Swiss guy, so I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly because Swiss people have a lot of weird accents. But yeah, that varies by country which band is free.
Yeah, I believe, aren't we 933 or something? No, we're 9 something, and they're 433 megahertz. And so you got to be careful if you're buying stuff on the web, because you get the wrong module, the wrong frequency, you can end up being illegal.
Well, the Industry Canada thing, Industry
915.
Canada, the right one for that too. They approve different ones. I've gone through the whole FCC thing. It's a nightmare.
So this is pretty much just summing up that last chart again. Okay, so Bluetooth, as many people know, was named after Harald Bluetooth, a Danish king who united Denmark and Sweden, I believe, into one country under Christianity. And that unifying thing was apparently the inspiration for Bluetooth, that there should be a universal standard to have your phone do things.
Otherwise, it had no relation to a Nordic warlord.
Okay, so there's a lot of vocabulary with Bluetooth that took me a while to get into. So when people say classic Bluetooth, they mean Bluetooth 2.0. And when they say low energy, they usually mean 4.0 through 4.2. And then smart was what they originally called Bluetooth low energy, but then rebranded it. And then mesh is now what they're calling Bluetooth 5.0, which only came out towards the end of 2017. And even though it's all in most new phones, it still doesn't quite have enough market share that you like interact with a lot of products in your everyday life. So, and then central and peripheral. Generally, the central is going to be your phone or your laptop, and the peripheral is going to be whatever device out there in the wild that has a battery and you don't want to waste its energy. Okay. So every Bluetooth device or service has a unique UUID. I'm kind of cynical about these. There are a lot of them out there for like heart rate monitors and stuff like that, so that there would be a universal standard, so you can just develop an app and you don't care what device it is and just connect to it and use it the same way. I just don't think any of these standards will stick around, just because what data you want is always changing in what format. Okay, so if you've ever heard of a beacon, that is just a Bluetooth low energy device that's sitting there with some information for you, and that you can observe it with a number of applications. There are plenty of just generic Bluetooth Low Energy like scanner applications out there that if you just browse the Play Store or anything like that, you'll find. Okay, so this brings me to my very first way to send information from my phone to an Arduino. So, so an HTO5 is like a very cheap module. It's less than $10. You can still find it on Amazon, pretty much anywhere. It has 4 pins, a voltage, a ground, a TX, and an RX pin. So you can hook it up right to an Arduino and just use their basic standard serial library with any generic app off the Google Play Store.
Don't you have to have 3-volt shift, level shift? Up?
You can just connect it directly and it won't break.
Oh, okay.
It's that good without even any resistors.
So probably 5-volt tolerant then.
Yeah.
Is the 3.6 the 6-volt?
That's power input. The receive and transmit may or may not be.
Signal.
You're probably okay.
It's worked fine for me in the past.
Me too.
But-
I've had no trouble with these modules either. They're
Yeah.
so easy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and then when I was looking to develop an Android app to communicate with this, I ran into a bunch of problems and I just couldn't find anything out there and I was really confused. This was about 3 years ago. But then I was like, why doesn't Android Studio have like a sample project for this? I'm so confused. They have one for Bluetooth Low Energy and a bunch of other stuff. But then I found this GitHub repository and this broke it all down. So if you're looking to do this, that's what I would recommend. But there was a reason I did not find anything for this because even 3 years ago, this was very out of date and not something people use anymore. So and the whole reason is like, what is Apple's deal? So the iPhone 4 was the last phone that supported Bluetooth Classic. And now if you want to do anything like that, you have to go through their made for iPhone process, which is a really terrible thing that you just don't want to do. Like I thought that this was a solution to all my problems initially, and it's not unless you're a huge corporation that's making like millions of devices. Because for Apple, for their Bluetooth Low Energy standards, up until very recently, maybe not the new iPhones, I'm not sure, they had a separate chip for the Bluetooth Low Energy that allowed them to stream music. Because for most audio files, audio formats, Bluetooth Low Energy 4.0 was not good enough. So they had their own proprietary chip that somehow let them stream faster. I really don't understand that, but I assume it was just Apple's strategy to be able to like force you to buy their headphones, from my understanding. Now Bluetooth 5.0, you can easily stream audio from. Otherwise you're using Bluetooth Classic.
But yet they're still interoperable with every Bluetooth thing I've tried.
That's my
That's
understanding.
funny.
I've had a situation, Carl, where I could communicate one way but not the other way.
Huh.
And using those, some you can go back and forth, no problem. You know,
Yeah.
but there's there's another module. It's not the 5, it's the 2 or something, which can be used on other. But I mean, if you're just talking about talking to a phone, some of them will work and some of them won't.
Huh.
I have run into that.
That's
Well,
really
sometimes they're configured as master versus slave, aren't they? What-
That
you're talking about
that
HTO5?
might be it.
Yeah.
But I just know that, you know, I've had ones where I could talk to it, but it couldn't talk back, or the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, they're still fun to use. They're still probably the easiest thing to use, if they work and do your job that you want it done. Yeah.
Okay, so the reasons to use Bluetooth Low Energy over Bluetooth Classic is that if you have anything that is using a battery, this is great because it uses approximately 1 to 5% of the energy of Bluetooth Classic. You don't need to use the system settings to pair. And if you're looking for help online with people, they will still answer your questions and know what you're talking about. Because like I said, even 3 years ago when I was trying to use that HTO5 module, no one was doing anything like that.
It was already passé, huh?
Yeah, it was already passé. And now in my current experience, I do develop a lot of apps using Bluetooth Low Energy and Android. I also occasionally use Flutter when I'm trying to do cross-platform stuff. It's Google's cross-platform framework. And those frameworks are great until you try and use any other sensors, at which point the libraries are not that great or universal. But Bluetooth Low Energy is supported by almost every Android phone out there at this point, like even $60 phones that we buy a lot of just to ship our product on, have it. Okay. So now Z-Wave. So
Oh, wait a minute, before you leave that Bluetooth, so what module would you recommend if you were Arduinoing now?
So if you're Arduinoing, I would say just don't even use a module. I would say use something that has an ESP866 on it already,
Okay,
and use one of those. So I have like two from like Adafruit right here, the Feather series. I have the Huzzah and what's this other one? The Blue Fruit, I believe is the name of these. But these are Arduino compatible. Just you have to download the library specifically and have the Wi-Fi all built in. In terms of Bluetooth Low Energy, that I've actually gone down to the chip level and done stuff with like the interrupts and stuff. I use the RN4020 for microchip. I know microchip is not the most popular. The most popular, if you're just going chip alone, would probably be one of the Nordic semiconductors. Just from what I've seen on other development boards and finished products. But at the time when I was looking for this, I was really just saying, I need serial port on Bluetooth Low Energy, and they had a very proprietary protocol for it called MLDP, which is only for this board, and even spelled wrong in their sheets.
What about the ESP32s? Are they?
Yeah. So these do have the ESP3286s or whatever that.
But that's Wi-Fi, right? That's high power stuff. But if you want low power.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
they have
Bluetooth and
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you, okay.
They have both, they have the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. ESP32 is got all that.
So is it interchangeable? You can shut
Yeah,
down
you
the
can shut
Wi-Fi?
one- You can shut, we can have both running at once if you absolutely wanted to.
Okay. So if you want low power, you kill the Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, and at this point I should announce that this is actually a sponsored promotion. I did recently win a particle Argon from Hackster.io. So I've been bribed $25 to talk about it. So I will get to that eventually.
And there you go. You're done.
Yeah.
See, that's it, isn't it?
Okay, well, I haven't talked about the benefits. Okay, so Z-Wave is just a protocol essentially for smart home devices. So some of them you'll see with like Zigbee stuff on it, but it's really mostly Z-Wave stuff, and it's just highly regulated to work with like smart things and stuff like that. I don't know how you would get into this at a hobbyist level. Okay, so now one of the big thing, one of the actually good protocols. So Zigbee is what you would call a mesh network. So you will have like a command module, and then you will have a bunch of worker bees, since Zigbee is supposedly a dance that bees do to communicate. You go back to the hive, and then you shake your tail around, and then all the bees disseminate. So it's like a flood network, if you've heard that term before.
They also point the direction. They tend to set a direction apparently.
Yeah, but.
Or the size or something,
Huh?
in relationship, I think, to the size.
Okay, and then, like you mentioned, XB is the name brand in this, and I would highly endorse the XB3 as the best module to do any sort of Zigbee or 802.15. I've gotten this stuff. I literally started their demos in less than 5 minutes for everything. The only part that I'm kind of mad about, and I've talked to their support team, is that they advertised them supporting Bluetooth Low Energy in their first press release. And you can definitely configure them over Bluetooth Low Energy, but I've yet to find any way that you can actually use that to communicate with like other devices and like actually have a business solution for it. And I've talked to their tech support and sent them many angry emails trying to figure this out. So and they haven't satisfied me. So.
But they're promoting, you know, whatever it is, the Zigbee method of, it's not BLE, right?
No. So Zigbee is based on 802.15.14, and there are a lot of other standards that fit into that, and I think I have a slide later on breaking down what those are. But they essentially all work about the same way, including Digi's proprietary one, DigiMesh. Okay. So Wi-Fi, I don't think I need to talk too much about Wi-Fi. Most people understand the capabilities just because your laptop, your phone, other stuff uses it. What I will talk about though is my particle device. And this is actually really cool because it's supposed to be IoT as a platform. So in buying this, you buy into their cloud services. So for your first 100 devices, which is like anything a hobbyist will use, you'll be able to use this with their like equivalent of like S3, if you're familiar with Amazon's cloud service products. But at scale, I think you have to dig really far in their marketing materials to find what happens after you get 100 devices. But after that point, it's about 40 cents per month per device. But you can like have like web services connected to this for like a very cheap and simple price, like simpler than even like using a Raspberry Pi.
So the service, the cloud service up to 100 devices is free? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
it's
saying?
free. It's completely free, which is really great for a
So,
hobbyist.
so you can communicate and have some intelligence in the cloud,
Yeah.
communicating to
Yeah. So essentially, okay. So my very silly idea for their hackathon on Hackster.io. If you're not familiar with it, they have a lot of contests where you can just write up a quick paragraph or two, and then apply for free hardware as long as you promise to like submit a project to their hackathon. And for this, I said, have you ever had a problem where on a hot summer's day, you come back from the grocery store and the beverages you just bought are room temperature and you want them cold as soon as possible? Well, you should put them in the freezer. But then you forget about them and they explode. So what do? You put one of these with a temperature sensor inside your freezer with it, and then you stick the antenna outside the door when you shut it. So you can send a notification to your phone to alert you when your drinks are 44 degrees exactly.
So it's an explosion prevention device.
Yeah, very connected to my work. And that got me this free $25 device. So yeah, these sort of concepts are very easy to win. If that doesn't say anything.
That's great.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
What's
So
the range on that? Just curious how
so Bluetooth generally, well, there are a lot of classes to Bluetooth.
but if it's cloud-based, right, it's pretty...
Well, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth Low Energy.
So using Wi-Fi, what's the range?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Alright, so
But enough. I haven't had problems.
Like
BLE
50 feet.
probably would be, I'm just guessing based on my experience with Nordic, 1 milliwatt type level stuff. It's usually inside line of sight about 20 feet. Outside it's surely greater. You can maybe go through one wall. This is experience with a 1 milliwatt
You have
Nordic.
BLE as over 100 meters, is that correct?
Up to about 100 meters, I'd say. Like there are
Outside,
three
clear.
classes.
Outside.
There are three classes of Bluetooth Low Energy, and I would say I've been with like the longest range. I think the longest range is supposed to be like 400 feet, which is like 100 meters. And I think in the field I have actually like gotten that through like a wall or two.
Yeah.
It depends on
So
the
there's a
incentives.
Kickstarter that I got, and They went way out of their way to make a nice inboard antenna for BLE.
Yeah.
And they were claiming like, I want to say it was a quarter mile.
Wow.
Really?
They were doing from steeple to steeple somewhere over in Europe.
Is it quarter wave on the board? That's interesting.
It is-
I've tried quarter wave antennas on just,
Oh,
you know,
good.
You know what?
433 and I've got 300.
It's called the Ruvi tag, RUUVI.
Okay.
But yeah, I've gone out, but yeah, I've set this up in like my bedroom and like, well, not this module, but a different one, and then like walked to the end of my block of like just leaving this in my bedroom and it's worked.
Yeah, I was talking crummy antenna, cheap, whatever, little ceramic thing, or a PC board tray, simple.
Okay, but like I said before, there are a lot of protocols like that fit into this range, and from my assessment, they're all pretty similar. Google just announced their own called Thread that only works with the Nest. I'm not sure where that's going to go. I don't know. I don't have that much confidence in the Nest. I think Amazon has a much better business model for getting their IoT products out there. They want to sell you things. Google just wants to advertise for you. I don't know if that's working. Okay, so this is like a protocol I actually know nothing about. But I don't see a reason to learn that much about because it does not have that much greater range than it seems to just be a replacement to Wi-Fi for me. And I'm just not quite sure if anyone wants to chime in. Have you had experience with this 6 low pan? I believe it's pronounced.
That's a new one.
It's not that new. Okay, so Sigfox is the weird French alternative to LoRa, and I'm not sure how, I looked around for development boards and ways to get into this, but I couldn't find one. So I'm going to assume that's because it's not really, I would assume that it's related to like standards in the US.
I think Adafruit's got, I think a couple products with Sigfox
Okay.
on it. It's like you can get one that has, I think 4, BLE, Wi-Fi, Sigfox, even LoRa in one module. On that?
So yeah, so the lower board I have is about $30, and it plugs right into the Raspberry Pi, and it was really easy to set up. I have not used it in quite a long time or for any professional use, but I am really just excited for these products because they do span multiple kilometers, so you can like have one in your chicken coop or on your tractor or a lot of rural agricultural applications.
Those need some kind of gateway, don't they?
Yeah. So I wish I had the document in front of me. I don't want to use all the terms off the cuff. Okay. So then NFC, which is the thing where you hold your phone really close to something else. And as a hobbyist, I don't really see much application for this. The coolest projects I've seen involving this are just like little cookie jars where like you hold your phone right next to it and you get a good cookie because you're a good boy. Let's see. I have one of those.
Okay.
Or checking out at Sprouts, right?
What?
Or like when you pay.
Yeah. But the modules themselves, they have limited functionality because you can't do a secure payment through an Arduino. And that's about it. Are there any questions?
Do you know much about the cellular network? And is there any to replace the 2A, the stuff they discontinued? There was a part of the same network you could use for free.
What did you say?
The cellular network, you transmit data on the 2G. I know they discontinued 2G. Is there a version that you can get to on 3G that's free below a certain data rate? Or do you have to have a GSM type module and you have to pay them every month for it?
I think you have to have a GSM module and pay someone.
It's licensed spectrum, right? It's cellular.
Yeah.
I mean,
Although with LTE.
2G used to be free, didn't it?
There is one service provider that can provide you free cellular data,
below a certain amount of data. I mean, there's a very little amount, like 200 megabytes or something.
Freedom Pop.
I did briefly.
Yeah.
Freedom Pop.
Yeah, I think I've read about that.
I did briefly work for a company that makes devices to track people who run like marathons and stuff. So like the little chips in your shoe, and you run over a little gate. And with the devices we had for those, it was about an $8 a month subscription through like Cellcom.
Yeah, there's still, I guess, T-Mobile still has 2G. I guess it's going to end this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it. My alarm system. I have one of the cheap 2G modules, and T-Mobile I think costs like $10 to. I can send and receive I think 30 email or text, and that's. So it's like $10
Let's
a month.
use my radio license. Let's use AARS, which is the amateur frequencies. You can send data through that to the packet system.
Okay.
But I think you're not allowed to use that for commercial purposes.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you can use
maybe
that.
that's-
You can use that for rocketry, and I know that the truckers are the ones really hurt by the 2G discontinuation. Because they were using that for their in-truck data that was coming back from all the semis. So now every truck has to have a GSM module and pay for it now, which is kind of a lot of money when you've got thousands of trucks.
Yeah. Fix what problem?
The 2G network problem where the 2G data was free, it was just there. They all had it, and then they slowly started phasing
Yeah,
it
but
out.
what do they use in the truck?
They used to use those for the truck, for semis, transmission of where they were and what they were doing. And the companies could follow that 2G data, but now, because of course they discontinued it, they all have to have GSM modules, so that their costs went up by quite a bit.
Yeah, because I know there's some weird like deregulation with like cars specifically, where you can have pretty much any RF protocol you want, as long as it's like in a car, as far as I understand. Something weird like that.
So as long as they.
There's some weird exceptions.
You don't put your window up so it gets out the window.
Something like that.
So Brent, on some of these, you mentioned the HTO5. It's real easy to just set up a serial link.
Yeah.
So is that, have you looked at the various different ways to send messages back and forth? I mean, do you just open a serial channel and then free for all in terms of what you send, or are there protocols, nice libraries?
Yeah. So any answer I give you is going to be not very helpful. It's really like the code itself. Essentially, okay, so there are services, and each service has a bunch of attributes in it. And attributes are just like fields. And when you update one of those, from a software standpoint, you can have a listener on it, essentially. And whenever that changes, it will be updated.
So you're talking the BLE
Yeah.
table. Okay.
Yeah. But really, any discussion of that on a high level, I think is kind of silly. I watched through Arrow's entire back catalog. They had a really great series on actually breaking down all of the nitty-gritties of the Bluetooth protocol and how it worked and how their AES encryption worked. And I thought that might be helpful in some way when developing applications. It's not at all. Don't do it.
Well, so how about, because if the BLE, if I understand, the BLE then has this broadcast table, right?
Yeah.
It's got these fields, you can use standard ones or you define.
Yeah.
So you can plug values in there and it just beacon and broadcasts them.
Yeah.
So you can listen to them and listener.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concept I get, but how is that different from what LoRaWAN or Zigbee do? If those are good for hobbyists?
Yeah, that is one of the questions, and the actual packets are different, like I've said before.
No, but he turned it.
What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So, if BLE uses this gap table where it just broadcasts values, then what's the concept, just a high-level concept of LoRa or Zigbee?
So Zigbee, in terms of how they communicate, with Bluetooth Low Energy, it's one-to-one. With generally, there are ways to do more, but with with Zigbee, it's a network where there is a central one, and then I don't remember the specific terms, but client ones, where as soon as the command module sends a message, it is propagated through all of the lesser nodes from one to the other. So it's called like a flood pattern, where if you send it to one, it'll propagate it to all the ones it's connected to, until the message propagates to the entire network.
Is it like guaranteed delivery?
That depends. Yes, for Zigbee it would be. For Wi-Fi, the big difference in making a design decision is usually whether to use UDP or TCP. And for UDP, there's no guarantee like response once you send a message, but with TCP there is. So that it really depends on your application, what you want. So for a lot of times when you're like streaming music or a video, like you don't care if like you miss a packet, because if you go back to correct it, there's lag. But for other things where you really want to make sure you get the exact same message that send the message that you want to,
No,
you
I'm just
use
like,
TCP.
why?
I think TCP is going out of fashion essentially just for throughput reasons.
Hey guys, we're having a meeting here, so.
But yeah, I think TCP, at least from like what I've read online, is going out of fashion just because of throughput for UDP.
Yeah, something to mention too, I guess, with I hadn't played really much with Zigbee, but if you're caring about latency, then certainly you'd know that if you have a large mesh, that you could have some significant latency,
Yeah.
and that might be something to dissuade you if you have a real-time application.
Yeah. I still have not seen all that many applications that really utilize the mesh functionality, which has me wondering like how it would work in the field. Like most of the things I use is just a central node and it's communicating to all the children. There's not another level past that.
Right.
When BLE, would you really say that, I mean, say the term beacon,
Yeah.
is it used mostly for that?
Yeah, that's just essentially another word for Bluetooth Low Energy. They'll call it
I
device.
mean, is generally the most thing that people are doing with it is using it as beacons?
It's mostly, well, I mean, the device everyone is familiar with is the headphones. Like that's the most like consumer application that most people are familiar with. In terms of like what beacons people actually use out in the wild, I think it's like more optimistic thinking about like what people will be using in the future.
Then what would you use for an outdoor robot that is seeking a certain condition? I mean, would any of these be an advantage over the other, over say like an acre of land?
I mean, usually you use like GPS, I would assume, for like box.
Not to find where it is, but necessarily for sending back information.
Yeah.
And gathering information, would that be something that would it be advantageous to stake 4 and have here's 4 beacons, map this area, anything like that, if you were really looking for something specific?
I guess I don't exactly.
Let's assume
understand
you're
that.
looking for underground bombs,
Okay.
and you have a robot.
It would be very convenient to have Bluetooth beacons.
Well, I'm a bum, I'm right here.
Mary, I've got a case that I looked at if y'all want to hear real quick. So think of it as something that I tried to paper napkin design quite a while back with the Zigbee chips. But based on how Zigbee works and the fact that it can transmit an RSSI, you can get about 10 centimeter resolution from it. And so the concept was you could have a wristband with a Zigbee node, and on one Zigbee network, you can have 65,000-ish endpoints. And so you could literally flood an area with receivers. Most of those would be stationary. And then based on the RSSIs, you could locate somebody. So let's say you want your kid to run around at Disney World, or your robot to run around at Disney World. It could tell you over that where it is at all times. There could be communications, and the battery would last for the day that you were there. The next day you pop in a brand new battery and give it to somebody at $25 rating for the day, whatever.
Yeah. In my personal use, I've been very surprised at like how accurate that RSSI stuff is. Like I've done some like mobile applications just saying like how strong is my Wi-Fi right where I am, and It's been pretty good.
The reflections kill our SSI though. Radio reflections of any surface, any metal, anything, so the range goes up and down all over the place.
Well, but the point is, you have a plentitude of stationaries,
Okay.
and then these bands are the ones that are moving, and it can be figured out just in the software. Like it can tell, okay, I'm closest to this beacon, and then now here's my geofence or whatever. But for the purpose, like if your robot's moving around and collecting data, I think right now most people are going Wi-Fi just because they want the throughput that Wi-Fi also offers them, just like they can be on.
It's easy to get to the internet.
Right, right.
I will
it
say
kills two
this
birds with one stone.
though, a lot of the autopilots that communicate to, so like for a flying drone.
Yes.
Or for a rover, use in the United States, use a 915 megahertz radio. And they have two of them, one on the PC and one on the drone or whatever. And they're using that in a protocol called Movelet and Mavlink, L-M-A-V-L-I-N-K. It's not secure. It can be hacked, but it's what it's doing is it's sending messages back and forth at a heartbeat, and it's also sending a heartbeat so that they know that they're still in range and whatnot. So, but that's done with just a 915 or radio, and I believe I'm going to say serial, and I don't remember the baud rate.
That's what the RTK GPS units using 915, 9 gigahertz, whatever, connection to transmit the error signal back from the rover. So
Okay, is that the dual GPS
Yeah.
system for a few $100?
Real-time
And they talk to each other and you get
Yeah.
centimeter
You get
resolution or
down to
whatever
about
it is.
2.5 centimeters back.
Yeah. But that's tricky too. It's not just falling off the pumpkin truck. We had one of our members. He's not with us now, but his name was Paul Bashir, and he had that set up. He used to work on autonomous trucks for the government up in Colorado, and he was going to demo that for us. Well, it definitely had demo fever, and so I mean it's not.
It requires a
Yeah.
connection to the satellites. It's a great deal better. You're not just looking at the data coming from them. You're actually measuring where on the wave
Yeah.
the thing is.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a really good connection. Any break, any obstacles tends to kill your
Yeah.
accuracy.
We're not good obstacles between the base station and the rover though? You said it would go through borders.
Oh yeah, no, that's not a problem.
You're talking about two
Yes, it's
single
the
satellites.
satellites.
The rover has to be able to see the satellites.
They
Both
both
of
have
them
to.
have.
They both have to.
Yeah, they take as I understand it, they take the GPS signal, and then as it hits the actual radio of the two receivers, the phase shift or something tells them.
The actual difference.
Yeah.
The actual error signal is transmitted to where and the actual calculations are done on the rover. So all the base station does is just gets the data, gets its position, sends it on, and the two are compared. The product time now is getting much faster. It used to be a lot slower, but the product time now is we're getting like 10 times a second, which is
Yeah.
good for that.
My own experience with.
Slipping a phase?
I think it's to do with the quality of the signal coming down from the satellites. So you go out of lock. The accuracy gets worse and worse as you drop more satellites. And then you get essentially back to just regular GPS, which is what, 20 or 30 feet or so.
Yeah, we've got a robotic system using that GPS RTK. And in initial testing, it looks pretty accurate.
Yeah, they can you send it over a field and it'll find a little cone, drive over it. It's amazing.
What does that cost though for, hardware and don't you have to have a subscription for it?
No,
No?
no, it's free.
Oh,
The actual
okay.
boards cost about 400, isn't
Maybe less. I checked Spark. I thought Spark Fund had.
it? Well, two, I think two,
The RTK.
It's got U-blocks, isn't it?
We actually got them from Sweden, Switzerland, sorry. U-blocks were from Switzerland. And they're about, I think about $400 for the two boards. But I think you get them cheaper now, you're right, but I think $90
But
something dollars.
it's kind of tricky. You have to they give you this kind of utility, what's the utility called?
Oh, I don't know.
It's
Center or something.
Yeah, U-Center, and it's a free app that you run on
It was
Windows.
used by the engineers.
And it will give you all the information about the thing, but you try to get it to go into what's called fix mode, and it's very fiddly to figure that out. But once you figure it out, you can go fix mode every time. So the base station is the thing that it's because it's generic, right? You turn it on, it's like, all right, let me find out where I am in the world, or you can tell it. You can decide exactly where it is in the world, to like 7 decimal places, and then use that base station. And at that point, it goes into fixed mode very quickly.
I think the 8 decimal place is down to centimeters, isn't it? Am I correct? We looked that up.
I think the 7 decimal place is like 10 centimeters. So you get fractions of 10 centimeters.
Yeah,
That's how you get down to
4 inches.
down to about an inch. So I had a question actually about Wi-Fi,
Okay.
and this is kind of a simplistic question. I
Okay.
just it's one of the things that I've never had to code to it, but just robotic application, say like in this building or around the building, and you've got your software set up for an SSID and a password in the thing, but then you have to go to another part of the building, and how do you have a Wi-Fi network where it can hand off the SSID and password and it will work anywhere? I'm sure in kind of big corporations they have this, so someone will take their laptop and they don't have to have lots of different SSIDs.
There are like just like $30 like Wi-Fi extenders that you can like buy like off of Amazon.
Yeah.
That are just like a very cheap solution to that.
You just keep extending the same SSID everywhere.
Yeah.
Do they get latency with that though?
Probably.
Yeah, the repeater is gonna be.
With the repeater, but there's some, there's some version of Wi-Fi now that can mesh somehow.
Yeah, I saw those systems that have a mesh that you can, I forget, I've got some notes on it, but you can just keep adding, plug them in everywhere. And
I have a
they use-
switch with some very long cables.
That's
even better, isn't it?
What?
When you originally chose your connection for your Arduino 3 years ago, why didn't you go with one like an NRF 24LE or whatever they got on the board where you just did your own? That's what I did.
Well, I wanted mobile connectivity. That's what I wanted.
I do what
And I tried laying out my own
I just did. I
antenna
just
on a
programmed the
board
frequency.
with a system on a chip, and that did not work. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do that right, and I was not able to get it to work.
Yeah. Well, the NRF 51 has got you've got access to the ISM type frequencies, so that's what they're called, and then you've got the Bluetooth stack as well, so you can do both. But you do have to do a lot of your own thinking. Which is not as good as getting someone else's sort of work.
Yeah, there's like a generational divide. I don't know anything about like these ham radio people. Like that was like before my time, and I would kind of like to get into it, but I don't know if there's actually active people.
So funny that you mentioned that. Today, in the Metroplex is the Plano Hamcom. We're missing it all right now, but there are several members of the Dallas Makerspace and some DPRG folks that are possibly over there. I know DMS members are there. Possibly some DPRG. Actually, a former DPRG president is there today. Roger Eric checked in, so he's over at the Hamcom. So there is an amateur radio SIG here at the DMS. Plug that you can learn about amateur radio and upgrade your licenses.
By walking into the room of people that are already into it, like that's not the best way to get into it in my experience.
Right. So
I feel like I need someone in this scenario.
No. They are teaching very basic how to go get your technician license here at the space. We've taught a couple this month, or this past month.
It's really easy.
So just look at calendar.dallasmakerspace.org. You will see some ham
But ham radios
classes.
are still cool and worth learning
No,
about.
Oh, absolutely they are.
Okay.
And
KG5 AYS, but I made
KG5 easy one.
I made them really angry because they said, well, who do you want to talk to? I said, I'm not going to talk to anybody. And they're like, well, what's the point? I said, I'm just going to send data.
Yeah.
And that really makes them angry. You know.
Well,
Nowadays they're in
Yeah,
They don't want to do that.
no, it'll be okay.
Okay.
It'll be okay.
Okay.
And one of the advantages too of being a ham
Just don't say
is that it does loosen up some of the antenna, some of the power requirements.
Yes, it
So
is.
some of the things that you're using right now that you can't use more than a dinky, you can get 10 dinkies,
10
and so it's a big, it can be a big deal. And it's not too hard to get a license, I don't believe.
No, it's not. I got my technician one studying for an hour and a half 4 years ago. I had some electronics background thanks to Dale and Ron and many others tutoring me over the years and mentoring me on some basic electronic stuff. So the extra license, yeah, that one you gotta actually study for, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it does.
But these are analog freaks, right? So.
Both.
Okay. Like,
No,
I thought when you said that people got mad about sending data because.
No, they didn't. I told them I wasn't going to be talking to anybody. And I already had the radios to do digital. I just wanted it to be legal, because
Right.
the little radios I have, they're little.
The software-defined radio stuff.
Yeah, you just plug in the modem, X modem, whatever they call it, into it, and you can just transmit miles.
Yes.
It'll go all kinds of distance. You don't forget the range problems. Now you're sending all your own stuff. There's no network arranged for you, but.
So you use point to
Definitely not
point.
secure, right?
You have point to point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what frequencies are you using and what kind of data rates are you sending?
Whatever ones I got on the handbag, I think it's what we got, 900, 400, is all the bands that.
All the amateur bands.
All the amateur bands, which are basically always being squeezed a bit, but they always keep the amateur bands because they want to believe that during an emergency there's going to be a way to get through, and this has worked out in the past.
Yes,
In
yeah.
Katrina, those were the only people that you could talk to, get to your family.
Don't they use them like fires here in LA?
So there's areas and races which are both folks that on the amateur radio side that will rise to the occasion
I think
anytime
mine does
there's
2 meters.
weather events. So
There's an organization in North Richland Hills that is a ham radio purist group, I guess you could say, but they do actually have a subset of theirs. They are emergency response, and that is what they train for. They'll actually do exercises.
It's like
and
old
things
school
like that.
social media.
that's actually a really good way of putting it because we call them Elmers. Elmers would be guys older than me.
Oh my goodness.
There may be some of those folks in this room. You're super polite here. Those are guys that already know, and by and large, they're very willing and nice and happy to let somebody else know that knowledge, okay? Just like if you come in here and you say, I want to learn a little bit about C, or I want to learn a little bit about robots, or I want to see things like we're ecstatic to show somebody that, right? And we'll show them on a little $5 hobby board, right? They don't have to go buy a $1,200 development kit. They can get, a generic Arduino and have a lot of fun with it. And there's like Echolink software. Once you have your license, you can download that software, and there's tons of Echolink transmitters where you don't even have to own a radio. There are transmitters out there that you can just hop on, and you can talk to anybody in the world. Now, there's folks that say, 100 watts of wire, I want to do it all myself with my own HF base and whatnot. But for the purposes of robotics and APRS, et cetera, yeah, a Yaesu or anybody else's
It's
little
legal.
handheld work. It is.
It's legal.
Yeah,
It's legal. You put it
just
on
go,
drones, you
just
put it
go
on-
get the license.
You put it on anything.
And use the word information, not data, and you'll be okay.
I was being governed by saying data, not data.
Digital information.
No, don't say digital.
Tornado
Just
alley.
say
I like to watch YouTube videos and people are flying around on paramotors and stuff, and gliders, and they're talking on a cell phone. And that's illegal. You're not allowed to use cell phones
Cellular.
in the air. Regardless, it's just not supposed to happen. The cells aren't set up that way. There's a lot of frequency.
Well, what's the coolest thing you can do with ham radios? Because what got me into, what convinced me to pay attention to software defined radio for like 10 minutes was that you could easily clone like a garage door opener with that. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the coolest thing ever. This is some anarchist cookbook stuff. Okay. Turn the camera off.
We'll edit this out and post.
But I read the anarchist cookbook before my current job, and that's not. And I was very fascinated by that book. The good book is the Amateur James Bond series. That's a good series of books if you're interested in some interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah. I came up with much worse than that, and I realized when these things first came out, that these have got 2 radios in them. They've got a very low frequency 330 kilohertz receiver that's next to your doorknobs, you know, and then they've got a high frequency. This one's Alexa, so it's 400 megahertz or 900 megahertz, 900. And what you could do is you could actually go up to the car and just put a receiver up to it, and then transmit that to the thing inside the person's house, where they're inside the house. It transmits back your receiver. You can open their car. Their keys are not that far away. And I heard on the news about a year ago that someone had done that.
Oh.
Well, think about it. It's just 2 radios.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even. You can actually speak to a giraffe if you have another giraffe to tell him to hum something. And so that's your radios don't even need to know the intelligence of it. All they need to do is retransmit that signal, bump it up, get the keys inside the house that are hanging on the hook to send back the signal. You send it to the car, open the car. Once you have a car going, it doesn't need this anymore. I tested that. I threw this out on the lawn one day and drove my Lexus off.
You turn it off, yes.
Well, until you turn it off, but then you've already got to the shop by then.
It's
You've got all the fingers taken off.
It'll whine at you, but.
You'll complain, but you know.
You're not talking from experience, are you?
No, I haven't stolen any cars recently. But it's you think about it, that's a huge problem, isn't it?
I was saying, put the key in something that's, you know, Faraday cage.
Yeah, you really should have to, if you go inside the house, you should drop your keys into a lead box or something.
Shop into a soup can.
Yeah, just anything that's.
There's an element out there that is they're using that in parking lots.
Yeah.
And they'll capture the signal you
Yeah,
send.
yeah.
You
And
walk
then
away.
when you go to
Oh yeah, other things. Wi-Fi relays like this are really cool. Just other things I have in the
It's
box.
a what?
Wi-Fi relays
Yeah.
like this are very.
What does it do?
This is just like useful for like IoT applications.
Switching power.
Yeah. So
It's like
essentially
opening a
plugging something in and unplugging it. The other very cool IoT device that I do not have here, but that works with this is it's so simple that I can't believe I didn't think of it. But there's just button clickers. So for like devices where like just cutting the power for them isn't good enough, and you actually need to press a button. There are devices that just press click.
See, I need a device that will take a rocker switch outside, you know, I've got something that rocker switch turns a pump on and off, I need to do that remotely.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's
rocket,
like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, kind of clunk.
Well, you can probably do it too.
Right?
Two of the button clickers.
All right.
Isn't that Wi-Fi relay? I mean, isn't that like about as overkill as you can get? Something with such high bandwidth and.
Yeah.
For 1 bit.
I got them, you know, I bought them, I used 2 of them, for things that are in the attic. I had a Wi-Fi access point in an attic, and I had an old printer that only used 2.4 gigahertz, and some way it would just stop communicating, and I had to recycle the power in the attic. I had to climb up there and recycle it, so I put one of these little modules on it, and I can recycle it.
And you can get those Amazon dash buttons.
Yeah.
And you can have all kinds of fun with those things. To open people's garages. And those are Wi-Fi. You push the button, it actually connects to Wi-Fi. And of course, what happens is the kid goes up and pushes it 50 times.
Can you hack those though? Can you do make your own?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Kid pushes it 50
that's the
times, you
point.
get 100 boxes of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Love that stuff.
Hey, well, Brent, we wanted to thank you for guest presentation today.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, just something from the crowd.
And it is
You're good, Brandon.
I am like the youngest member here, I guess. So you gotta appreciate me.
You've only got a big under 50 and I think you're in business. The rest of us so old.
We're living high schoolers that come to the build nights, right?
Jack's here, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, with age comes wisdom.
And
Then,
Ray.
then there's Ray, right?
What's that?
Then there's Ray.
Did I just miss the last competition, like last month, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the last competition?
Robo Round.
Yep.
Your wife's graduation.